before I expand on the overall Lebanese front, just to show you the footage from the other day when Hezbollah fired 100 Katyusha rockets at the Golan Heights occupied by Israel. Okay, so why is this impressive? Well, I did a separate video on that already, but I didn't have the footage. It simply wasn't published at the time of recording. And you know, I just want to say that this is the first time the Israelis have been hit in the Golan Heights since 1973. And I want you to think about how impressive and how important and how crazy that is, simply because, you know, what happened is the Israelis, this is Syria. Remember, the Golan Heights are Syrian, and they're internationally recognized as Syrian. The one who changed his mind about this is Trump. But again, he's breaking with, you know, a long-standing U.S. policy. And of course, Biden doesn't think very differently from Trump. So he kept that. But we don't care what Trump thinks or what Biden thinks. It's still Syria. And the last time there was a major war or any kind of conflict or escalation in that part of Syria was 73. And now Hezbollah are not just firing at the Israelis on the Lebanese front, but, you know, just next door in Syria. So it's an expansion in the sense that it's nothing has happened there for a long time, but also geographically, Hezbollah are expanding it you know, to the Syrian side. And again, there's nothing crazy about that. The Syrian government is fine with that because they want to get the Israelis out of the Golan Heights more than anyone. Also, remember that inside Syria to the north, you have the Iraqi resistance who are also firing into Syria to hit the American bases. Okay, so the Iraqis hit the Americans in Syria, and the Lebanese are hitting the Israelis in Syria. So. This is another new video published by Hezbollah, which is sort of a montage. And here, let me play it to you.
تعلي من علي.
Yeah, so that sounded so that was Nasrallah, and he was basically saying, like, you know, if you expand, we'll expand too, right? You escalate, we'll escalate. And as we talked about, the Israelis have been escalating by going in deeper. But I want to point you to this very good read, because I thoroughly enjoyed this little thing put together. I'll pull it up on the screen so you can see it. 1 second. So this is by hold on, I don't know if it's visible here. Yeah, by Ali Hashim and Ali Hashim, and I very much liked what he wrote here, because it was a very good analysis and similar to what I have been getting across to you guys. And he talks about how, you know, basically there are three main points of contention on the Lebanese front. You have, of course, Meron. Now, Meron is the air base that I talked to you about, at the highest point in quote-unquote Israel, which supports air strikes, drone strikes conducted by the Israelis. And the Hezbollah strike in January of about 60 rockets, of which 40 hit, was, again, a very major, a very, significant attack. And it was an initial response to the assassination of Saleh Haruri in Beirut. Okay, so that's one thing. You got the Northern Command headquarters in Safed and the Golan Heights, which the Golan Heights I just showed you and I just talked about 3 days ago, right? So here on the map, you can of course see here are the occupied Golan Heights, so that's Syria, and then here is the the Lebanese front, and then quote unquote Israel. So he talks here about how Safed, there was no claim of responsibility. But it's not necessarily needed. Meron has been hit several times. That's strategic. What about the Golan Heights? And as he nails it, as I just told you guys, this is the first time, and this is what struck me, which was so good about it, is that Syria is unable to defend itself because of 10 years of attacks by Al Qaeda, ISIS, the United States, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Germany, France, the United States, UK. So obviously it can't do anything, but Hezbollah, they've been able to do something about this, and now fire at the Golan Heights. And something I'll also add is that the Golan Heights are being used all the time by the Israelis to stage airstrikes and attacks against Syria. So when now it's flaring up and distracting the Israelis, this could also help on that front. No pun intended. So that's one thing, and he calls it horizontal expansion. Right, in response to Israel's vertical expansion. What he's trying to say is that, Israel went deeper, right? Because the front is basically you have Israel to the south, Lebanon to the north. Although, again, this is confusing, so I'll just pull up the map for you because we say South Lebanon. Anyway, here, I'll just pull it up on the map and explain it to you that way. I think it's better. So, okay, this is Israel's vertical expansion. So Israel's been going up deep into Lebanon like that, okay? I'm just going to put random points here, okay? These are just random points. They're not the exact ones. I'm just putting random points so you can see it with a line. They've been going vertically. So, okay, Hezbollah said, we'll go vertically. And they went into the Golan Heights here. You see the dotted lines? That's Syria. These are the Golan Heights. So that's the response, right? And then here he talks about the bold moves that Israel has made since 2024, meaning Saleh al-Aruri being assassinated in Beirut, and then the attacks on Sidon, Tyre, and then February and March launching airstrikes in Baqa to the east of Lebanon. So he says that afterwards, what's interesting is that after 5 months, both Hezbollah and Israel are still fighting on the edge, without any side taking the initiative to an all-out war despite the threats. So what he's trying to say is that basically, despite these these flare-ups, as I would call them, there has been no all-out war breaking out between the two. Right? It hasn't escalated to that point, but these flare-ups are of significance. Yes, and that he says that the rules of engagement therefore can't be talked about based on depth and distance anymore, because if the Israelis are going vertically and Hezbollah are going horizontally, but there's no breakout of war or escalation, he says that instead of distance or depth, we should now talk about the targets. What is being attacked, right? And so that's how the rules of engagement, or as Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah would call it, the equation, right? The equation should be talked about. All right, it should be talked about in terms of objectives. What is being targeted? What significance does it possess? And so he therefore goes on to state that, you know, the Israelis' main objective is, of course, to get Hezbollah out of the border areas and destroy as much infrastructure as possible based on the target list they possess. He says that the Israelis are succeeding in turning the border area into a burned, basically he means like scorched earth. But Hezbollah, nevertheless, are still present, at the tip. And he says that Israel, this is a very important point, that Israel is trying to provoke Hezbollah to use its strategic weaponry, and that this is still not materializing, right? So what he's trying to explain here is that the goal now that Israel's trying to achieve is to push Hezbollah, to annoy them, or basically force them into using their unconventional or rarely used weapons, meaning the big guns. Something that perhaps I should have spelled out earlier on is that what Hezbollah, I know I have said it many times. I told you that throughout the years, the resistance have gotten stronger. They're better weapons, right? What Hezbollah are using today is way better than what they had in 2006. And what they were using in 2006 is way better than what they had in the 90s, right? With time, they're getting stronger. You can't say the same of the Israelis or the Americans. They're in a decline. What that means now for Hezbollah is that, when they're firing Katyusha rockets or mortar shells, Israel know about these things. They know these assets. They know where they're being fired from. It's nothing new. And they know how to negotiate these obstacles. They know how to defend themselves against them, and also to find where they're being launched from and then try and hit them back. Okay? But what Israel are really interested in is they want the new weapons that Hezbollah have been stockpiling and building and perfecting and tuning and tinkering with for the last couple of years, that maybe Iran has given them as well. Those are the most important ones, because that is what Hezbollah is saving for a rainy day. If shit really hits the fan, the big guns are what Hezbollah are going to bring out. And man, let me tell you something. No one is ready for that. Not even the Israelis are going to be ready for the shock that hits them that day, if that day comes. And it looks like, it looks more and more like that day is coming. I'm telling you, man, 2006, mega shock. Mega shock. The Israelis, they don't know what hit them. To this day, they have no clue what hit them. They got slapped into the next century. Okay. So they are really interested in knowing what Hezbollah possesses now. Okay. Now, of course, these things, for example, the Katyusha rockets and so on, they know about, but they want to know about the other weaponry. And for example, does Hezbollah have Scud rockets? Scud rockets. Now that's very, very useful, right? If they're long distance. What about the Fatah 110? These are also very useful, very, very important. That's what the Israelis want to get their hands on, or what they would like to destroy. But it's never going to happen. Do you know? Just so we're clear. I know the other day the Israeli was I was making fun of him because he was saying like tunnels from the air. Hezbollah have real tunnels, actual tunnels, and their tunnel system is just as advanced, or if not more, than what you're seeing in Gaza. And their weapons, I mean, the resistance in Palestine, in Gaza, is very strong, as you can see. Hezbollah are even stronger than that. Just so you can kind of gauge how serious we're talking about on this front. I'll also just point you to the fact that this salvo of rockets here, the volley that Hezbollah lobbed at the Israelis. I showed you this video the other day, I think. Oh no, actually, it's another one that I wanted to show you. Good, I'm glad it's here. So just look at these things. I mean, it's insane, right? But despite the impressive fireworks show, look what he says here. He says this salvo of maybe 40 rockets, let's say, one times $2,000 each. So it was in. So basically, he means that one each rocket would cost $2,000. Was intercepted by Iron Dome, where each You know, each one cost each round cost $70,000. The math is part of the war here. This is exactly what I've been telling you regarding Yemen. You got the UK and the US spending millions of pounds or dollars per missile to shoot down a drone that costs a few thousand. You know, all they got to do is fire a bunch of drones at you, and they've bled you dry. They have bled you dry. So Hezbollah are not just firing Katyusha rockets for the sake of firing Katyusha rockets to put on a fireworks show or whatever. There's math involved here. There's also the economic side of things. You know, and again, we are talking about long-term wars. Jesus Christ. I mean, how long have the Israelis been occupying Syria and Palestine and Lebanon? Since fucking Israel materialized. That's how long. So yeah, attrition is a factor here. It's absolutely a factor. Israel can't survive 24 hours without the Americans giving them weapons. Their high tech is garbage and useless compared to the ATGMs that Hezbollah fire. Their Iron Dome can't help you there. And then when it comes to the Katyusha rockets or you know, any salvo of rockets that's fired, all they got to do is overload you. I mean, when I say overload, I don't just mean economically. I mean also the computers. There's only so much rockets they can handle. And again, these are tactics being saved for a rainy day. So, you know, these are very, very serious threats that have to be taken into, well, not threats. The Israelis are the goddamn threat. But these are very serious considerations that need to be, you know, thought about and calculated and as again, Nasrallah says, factored into the equation, right? So I personally, and again, there's the data and the history to back this up. If an all-out war breaks out with Lebanon, Israel are going to get spanked like you haven't ever, like, you know, like a spanking you can't even imagine, right? An unfathomable spanking, right? A spanking unseen in history. 2006 will look like a joke. Actually, October 7 made 2006 look like a joke. So imagine how much of a joke both of those things will look like with Hezbollah. Really, they are not fucking around. I'm not kidding. And this is the strength of the resistance that we're talking about here. This is when we talk about the axis of resistance. It's all of these factions, their capabilities, their geographical areas taken into account, their turfs, their territories. What today, though, you know, in 2024, look at the map itself. Literally, look at the map. Hezbollah can hit the Israelis in the Red Sea, man. In the Red Sea. Forget the Golan Heights. The Red Sea. The Iraqis can hit the Israelis in the Red Sea. The Yemenis can hit Tel Aviv. I mean, you know, these are capabilities that the Israelis are. They're shitting themselves. They don't know what to do. I mean, you know, the American ships and British ships and the French ships who have no business being in the Red Sea in the first place, without them, without Western support for Israel, I mean, forget about it. You know, you have to understand something. Even back in 73 and in 67 and in 56 and in 48, without Western support, Israel could have never survived. You know, it's because it's a Western colony. It's because of Western support that it continues to plague the Middle East. And again, it shouldn't be seen as anything else. It's a Western colony. That's it. What do you want me to say? But again, you know, this is really really interesting in terms of, I mean, in terms of geography, in terms of military capabilities. These are very interesting times for sure. It's just that, you know, there's only so much people in Gaza can take, and when I see what's happening in Gaza, I mean, you know, it's unbelievable. The problem is that you can't expect all of these factions to just, you know, whip out the big guns and go for it. There is such a thing as tactic, as strategy, as timing. It's not just whenever you like, you know. Okay, I told you Hezbollah could just take their entire arsenal, fire it right now. But how does that win them the war? You know, you don't win a war just by firing every single thing that you have. You have to plan ahead. You have to, you know, time your attacks. And, you know, the Yemenis are doing everything they can already. Syria is unable to do because it's occupied by four. Well, it's chopped up in four pieces, but it's occupied by three countries. And you know, so Syria's role has always been to allow Hezbollah, allow Hamas to arm in the first place by providing the land routes, by providing them with a base. I mean, like Palestinian Islamic Jihad is based in Syria. You know, Syria is the mother. You know, it's the home of all of these countries. I mean, like I said, 100 years ago, there was no Lebanon, there was no Israel or Palestine. It was all Syria. Okay, so I mean, before Sykes-Picot, it was all Syria. So, in any case, right now the resistance is extraordinarily capable. The weapons they have, the technological know-how they have. The Israelis and Americans never thought that it would come to this, and they're so frightened they never even talk about all of this. I mean, the video I did the other day about Iraq hitting Ben Gurion and Haifa. I mean, what the fuck? Like, just even now when I think about it, I'm stunned. I mean, really, the last time anyone from Iraq hit the Israelis was Saddam Hussein, you know, with the Scuds. By the way, I'll just say one thing. Saddam Hussein, you know, is far from an angel, and the Americans used him to attack Iran, and that's its own thing. But he's the only Arab leader who ever, you know, really went for it. I mean, he was. It's because they couldn't control him that the Americans went after him. You know, it's like the mafia. You're an asset, and then when they're done with you and you become, you know, uncontrollable. Okay, that we got to get rid of him now. But again, I mean, you know, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, they also tried against the Israelis. So it's not correct that he's the only Arab leader. But at the time, he was certainly the only one willing to take them head on. You know, a lot of Arab leaders now, they talk, but they don't do anything. And you know exactly who I mean. You know, we're talking about Egypt. We're talking about Saudi Arabia. We're talking about Morocco. Morocco don't even talk. But this is the problem. You have groups like Hezbollah, like the Hashd al-Sha'bi, like Hamas, like the Houthis, who represent the entire Arab people, but they are just they're still non-state actors, right? And again, the only government is Syria. I mean, like an actual state that supports the resistance. If you look at Iraq, I mean, you look at Lebanon, the governments are mixed, you know, like they don't have an official position on this. So it's kind of, it's a bit sad that it's had to fall to non-state actors to kind of take up the torch and you know, take the torch and take up the challenge and take on the challenge of fighting the Israelis. But still, they are doing what they can and they're effective. So, you know, it's still really embarrassing, though, the leaders that half the Arab world have. They're not Arab leaders. I mean, they're really just Western puppets. But anyway, I wanted to keep it about the technological capabilities. We'll leave it at that. And yeah.